Hello and welcome to Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar and with me is my co-anchor Sonia Shenoy. And let's begin with the markets, Sonia. And yes, yesterday was a bad day for the markets. There was a lot of nervousness. But today is a day of slight bit of relief. Even though the market has been trying to really defend that 17,000 mark, we have seen a dip below the 17,000 mark today in the trading session. But at lunchtime, there is a little bit of refueling that we are seeing at this point. So yes, a certain bit of recap in terms of recouping in terms of the positions over 17,000. 67 points gain. Sensex at the moment gaining about 240 points. Bank Nifty is on the flat line, is hugely underperforming the key indices today, while the mid caps also in line with the key indices in the green. Advanced decline ratio because of the mid cap participation is also stable in favor of the advances. Big boy Reliance Industries recovery in the middle of the day really helped lift the sentiment on the key indices as well, Sonia.
Absolutely. And, I think the overarching theme, Nisha, is that this market is resilient, right? It's holding on to the 200-day moving average of 16,990. Despite such a sharp fall across the globe, the Nifty is not giving up on 17,000. Just goes to show that perhaps, maybe not decoupling, but perhaps at least not falling as badly as global peers is something that the market is, focusing on. Of course, the big event to watch is the RBI policy on Friday, and there's an expectation once again of a 50 basis points rate hike. So I think the market will be in wait and watch mode ahead of that event. But let's talk about some stocks now. Mahindra Logistics is buzzing in trade as the company bought Rivigo's B2B express business. Mangalam is here with the details. Mangalam.
Well, that's correct. So there has been a positive development in Mahindra Logistics. The stock sitting with a gain of almost 3%, mildly off highs with the market. But remember, they've gone ahead and made an acquisition. Rivigo's B2B business is what they've bought for about 225 crores. Remember, Rivigo is the company that pioneered the relay logistics service. They had two arms, that was full truckload logistics as well as B2B. And in that, Mahindra has gone ahead and bought the B2B vertical. The B2B business in FY22 did revenues of around 371 crores. Of course, much higher than what we saw in FY21, but lower than what we saw in FY20. FY20 was an exceptional year for online commerce as well because of the pandemic. But importantly, Mahindra Logistics' own revenues in last year were over 4,000 crores, and in the first quarter itself was around 1,200 odd crores. So this incrementally adds about no more than 8 to 9% to their overall revenue. The bigger trigger, however, here will be the kind of leveraging that these guys can do with Rivigo's network of 250 plus processing centers, 1,000,015 square feet of land, or the warehousing area that Rivigo has. So even if they go ahead and do about 6 to 7% margins on this 371 crore revenue that Rivigo has done, it would be accretive for their return on cash, because it would mean about 10% on the 225 crores that they are deploying. The question, however, is how much can they scale up this business with their existing ecosystem.
All right, Mangalam, thanks so much for getting us all those important details. Moving on to another important clarification, which first was here on CNBC-TV18, and now the Power Ministry has also clarified to us that REC will continue to remain owned by the Power Finance Corporation, or PFC, of India, and this after the government rejected the proposal for Power Grid picking up a majority stake in REC. Vivek, my colleague, here with more details. Vivek.
Well, absolutely right. For the past few trading sessions, there was quite a bit of uncertainty regarding, the stake of PFC as far as REC is concerned. A couple of news reports had indicated that Power Grid may be asked to take over the stake of PFC in REC, and this uncertainty had led to significant selling pressure as far as Power Grid is concerned. Significant market cap was eroded on the back of this development. What was it that market was pricing in, and what was it that market was worried about? Number one, capital allocation policy that came under question. Number two, the dividend yield of the stock, healthy at 6% currently. There was worried that it would drop to 4%. And number three, if you're talking about the entire valuation multiple, markets were worried that there would be a derating in this particular, if this particular development came to fruition. However, the power ministers to CNBC-TV18 actually clarified, saying that, the government has decided that REC will continue to be a PFC-owned entity. So this particular overhang on Power Grid got removed, which is why today you're seeing Power Grid stock, breathing a sigh of relief. Citi has reacted to this particular development. Citi has said that the removal of this overhang is quite a positive development. They believe that Power Grid continues to remain one of their top buys. They believe that high ROEs and the company being a very strong player as far as the transmission space in India gives it quite a positive rub-off effect.
Okay, in fact, let's listen in to what the management has of REC had to say.
PFC acquired REC stake, what the government was holding, I think, in 2018 December. And after that, overall, REC has been functioning as a subsidiary of PFC. However, government was having direct control on REC. And in the meanwhile, there were options that were explored in terms of who else could be a suitor for REC. But in balance of things, I think yesterday Ministry of Power took a call that status quo would be maintained. Q2 is I think would be better than what Q1 was, and full year I think it's difficult to give a guidance, but then it should be much better than the last financial year as a whole.
Okay, well, Nazara Technologies is the other stock. It's been losing out in trade after the Tamil Nadu government has approved an ordinance to ban online gaming in the state. Vahishta tells us more. Vahishta, over to you.
Hi, thanks for that. Well, that's right. Tamil Nadu cabinet has approved an ordinance to ban online gaming, and the reason that they are stating is that the teenagers and adults were losing their entire earnings and savings in these online betting games. Also, for example, now though Rummy might be a game of skill, the game using stakes will be considered as gambling. Now, we also know that Nazara Tech and many other players are looking at expanding their presence in the online gaming space, which at present is at a very nascent stage in the country. We know that India's online gaming industry has been under the scanner since quite some time and undergoes frequent changes in regulations and in taxations. For example, the GST changes that we have seen. Now, many of these bans were challenged by skill gaming startups and the industry associations in their respective state courts, which overturned these suspensions. Now, the Supreme Court had also upheld the fantasy game as a game of skill in last year, that is in July 2021. States like Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Karnataka have sought to prohibit these game of skills. Back to you.
All right, Vahishta, thanks so much for all those important details. And yes, the controversy, or at least that debate between online gaming being really betting or a game of skill really continues. But Tamil Nadu has taken the lead in banning it, and let's see where the debate really lands. With that, we'll slip into a short breather quickly on Business Lunch. But currencies across the world correct as the dollar strengthens. We'll tell you all about the move in the currency market after the short break.
Well, the Dow futures have picked up pace, as up over 300 points, and that's the reason our own markets are also moving into the green, perhaps in anticipation that later in the evening the market will, trend into positive terrain, the US markets that is. But the rupee, after seeing 3 consecutive sessions of decline, has now shown a recovery from lows, while bond yields too have slipped. Lata is here with all the details. Lata.
Well, there clearly is some kind of an exhaustion or a peaking off of the dollar rally. It's, either flat or inches below its 114.5 that it had touched. It's like more closer to 14.05. This is also because a lot of central banks have intervened. First, the BOJ intervened, the PBOC has been intervening. So there is a sense of, enough, it has run enough, and there is a bit of a peaking off, maybe temporarily. So today we've seen many of the Asian currencies, or at least a handful of the Asian currencies recovering. The Indian rupee has recovered, so has the Thai baht, so has the Korean won. But we must be aware that there can still be a potential of reverses. The Chinese yuan has still been depreciating, and since we export a lot to that country and import even more from there, if the yuan depreciates, the deficit increases with China. So we have to keep an eye. The RBI may actually prefer a gentle depreciation like the yuan. But for the moment, the point is that Asian currencies, or the world of currencies itself, currency markets, is catching its breath. And there have been no sharp moves after that over the weekend move in the pound. The bond markets as well in India are showing a decent recovery. Already yesterday we saw the 10-year spot yield recover a bit towards close because people had gone seriously short and they were covering shorts. Today we are seeing, the OIS, the overnight index swap market, which is a very, very liquid market, which reflects the mood of the market. Also seeing yields either peaking off, staying flat like yesterday, or falling off. Now, why are they flat? Because already the 1-month OIS is factoring in a 50 basis hike by the Reserve Bank. Now, how much more is there for that yield to rise? Likewise, the 1-year OIS already yesterday was reflecting 6.9. That means the peak repo rate, the Reserve Bank should be raising it all the way to 6.75 or 7. That looks a little unlikely at this juncture. So there was a bit of an overshoot. And today we've seen all those yields also inching down by a couple of basis points. We will have to wait and see, because the US yields are still in an upping mode. From 3.79, they moved to 3.82 overnight. So there is still an upward pressure. But at the moment, the Indian yields seem to think enough is enough.
All right. Thanks so much, Lata, for getting us all those details. Of course, money market is on our watch list, especially after rupee has comfortably found its position above the $80 to a dollar mark. Now, speaking exclusively at CNN News 18's town hall, the finance minister of the country, Nirmala Sitharaman, said that the rupee is holding well against the dollar, and she added that India is much better placed than many other countries whose currencies have plummeted against the US dollar. Listen in.
How Indian rupee, because of the strength of our macroeconomic fundamentals, is holding out well, and the rate at which other currency vis-a-vis dollar has been, rate of fall of other currency vis-a-vis the dollar has been sharply much more than Indian rupee. So, is that a consolation? Partly yes, because the strength of your economy speaks when you're talking about your exchange rate. And as a result, we are far better than many other countries whose currencies have fallen pathetically against the US dollar. Now, what is our strategy? The interventions, if at all, which RBI makes using the Indian Reserve, which I think nearly 75 billion has been used, essentially to stop the fluctuations, the severe volatilities. RBI is not aiming at fixing the rate, exchange rate. The government doesn't believe in it. Indian rupee and its exchange rates, the rate is also left to the markets to decide how it's going to float or get fixated at some level. So RBI's intervention is more to avoid the fluctuation. The US Fed's action has an impact on all currencies. So we'll have to only be sure that the fluctuation is not going to be severe. On the one hand, some people do also speak that, a falling rupee also helps. Some people speak, I want that to be clearly understood, that a falling rupee helps in exports. Whether it does or it doesn't, theoretically it may, but in today's condition with the recession outside and demands not really being as adequately as it should be, even a fall in the rupee may or may not help our exports. We are all conscious of these basic facts. We'll have to keep watching.
All right. Well, that's the Finance Minister. Let's also listen into what the DEA Secretary Ajay Seth and the Finance Secretary TV Somanathan had to say on the recent rupee depreciation. Take a look.
It is not a concern, and is the view which you are expressing is overblown. Because if you recall that about 2 years back, when the reserves were of the same order, even then the discourse coming out in media, etc., and even by even other informed persons, was that we have adequate reserves when they were 2 years back. Now, yes, there has been a depletion because of the inflows have come down, and at the same time the trade deficit at a higher level. But I don't see as a concern. India has a fairly large reserves.
It's an international phenomenon, nothing peculiar to the rupee. It's dollar rise, not rupee fall.
So, but is that a worry for you?
No.
All right, lots of points of views really coming in from the government on the rupee depreciation. It's the dollar's rise and not rupee's fall is the word coming in from the government. Now, staying with the global currencies, well, the British pound hit an all-time low against the dollar, falling to 1.04 pounds, and the UK 10-year gilt yield also rose to its highest level since the year 2008. Now, all this after the Bank of England said that it will not hesitate to hike rates in order to bring inflation back to the 2% target. In fact, CNBC's Jumana gets us more details on this.
It has been a remarkable couple of days over here in the UK. I just want to walk you through exactly what's just happened so you can get an idea of what's gone down in the last 48 trading hours or so. Thursday, we had the delayed Bank of England meeting. They only hiked by 50 basis points. Expectations were that they were going to go for 75 basis points. That was the first blow to the pound. The day afterwards, the new government revealed their new so-called mini budget or growth budget, which was not perceived to be taken well at all by markets. In fact, because so much of this budget was due to unfunded tax cuts, we saw a really stark reaction in gilts. They sold off about 50 basis points on Friday, right after the news came out, and the pound continued to sell off as well, selling off a further 3.5 percentage points on Friday. Come early Monday morning and throughout the course of the day yesterday, we touched an all-time low for the pound, getting to around a 103 handle, sparking some market participants to think that because the sell-off had been so extreme in both the pound and in fixed income, the Bank of England was going to have to do something. Now, around 5 p.m. yesterday, we did get a statement out of the Bank of England. They said that they're monitoring the market situation very, very closely and would not hesitate to act in a manner that would ensure that inflation would get back to 2 percentage points. And this was, while it gave a little bit of support to the market, was perhaps not sufficient because some people thought maybe they would go in for that emergency hike. Instead, what they're saying is, look, we're not going to be forced into dealing with the pound here. We're just going to continue with our regular Bank of England meetings. The next one is scheduled for November the 3rd. The market is now pricing in about 165 basis points worth of hike for that meeting. And just to give you an idea how much we've moved, at the beginning of the year, the market assumed that the peak point for interest rates in the UK would be 1.5 percentage points. Now, the market is expecting 6 percentage points because you're grappling with not just an expansionary fiscal stance, but also you've got a current account deficit and you've got high inflation. So a lot of pressure on both the Bank of England and the Treasury to do something about it at this point.
Okay, multiple pressures there for the economy in England, the pound plummeting to a new low and recessionary fears as well. Let's slip into a quick break. On the other side, we'll get you the latest from the Russia-Ukraine war. Do stay tuned in.
Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch, and a quick look at the market. And yes, because of Dow futures really turning positive, it has had a significantly positive impact on our own markets. And there's a huge amount of, gain and buying that is being seen. 0.5% up on Nifty as well as Sensex. Mid caps are the one with slight outperformance, and they are the ones which have shown the most amount of gusto. So therefore, Adani Power, as one of the big components there, has performed very well. Bank Nifty also comfortably in the green, and Reliance Industries adding the maximum weight there. Let's put the focus now on the courts, and in a historic move today, well, the Supreme Court has begun live streaming court proceedings online from today. So the live telecast, which is currently being carried out via YouTube, will soon be done via the Supreme Court's own portal to view for public viewing, and that's like a big move coming in digitization and online
of the proceedings. Absolutely,
yes.
The Supreme Court keeping it with the times, right?
Yes.
Moving with the times, rather. But to some more important developments, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Tokyo to attend the state funeral of the former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was shot dead while making a campaign speech on the 8th of July this year. Prime Minister Modi also met with his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida and discussed various bilateral subjects. Prime Minister Modi, in his conversation with Prime Minister Kishida, said that he's confident of the India-Japan relations scaling greater heights under his leadership.
All right, shifting focus to Russia, where President Putin's mobilization of army reservations and revisits has really stirred some rare anti-government protests around the country. And NBC News' Erin gets us this report on the recent developments. Take a look.
In eastern Russia, terror. A man opens fire at the military enlistment office as everyone else runs for it. One officer injured, the suspect under arrest. According to local media reports, the suspect was shouting, "No one will go to fight." Troubling signs, the response to Russian President Putin's order sending reservists to the front lines is growing violent. The attack following a rare weekend of protest. From St. Petersburg, with some demonstrators struck by police, to Dagestan, where gunfire went off within the crowd. Thousands risked arrest to rail against mobilization, as many more dodge the draft any way they can. Lines of cars to cross the border into Finland and Georgia. Traffic jams extending for miles, though others are reporting to draft offices. This man saying his mother was unhappy, but what can he do? We have to defend our country. But in Russian-occupied areas of Ukraine tonight, some say young men of draft age are now going missing. Zainish Hussein fled the eastern city of Kherson 3 weeks ago.
They go missing, right? Like, it's just drag them out of their homes and take them somewhere.
That claim as Russia is poised to annex occupied areas once the controversial referendum to join Russia that critics call a sham election is over toward the end of the week. In Russia, Edward Snowden was granted citizenship. No response so far from the former NSA contractor who's wanted in the United States accused of espionage.
All right, with that, it is curtains down on Business Lunch. Thanks for watching. Midcap Radar comes up next.